Yes.
And nothing happened in the draft, so.
So
Whoa. That is Terkavian Smith and Ricky Council the fourth slander.
Hey everyone, we recorded this episode with Porter, aka TrillBroDude, a day before Harden opted in and requested his trade. So Steve, Dan, and I recorded a little bit extra just discussing what it means for the team and possible trade scenarios. Make sure to follow Unoball on YouTube and on Twitter. Porter does a great job over there. And enjoy.
Oh, he's leaving. I am so excited. We'll talk about potential returns and all of that, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to watch him again. He doesn't care. He's going to lay down at the first opportunity. He's good. I know that he's good. But the Sixers, when Embiid plays, are always good. So figure something else out and find a guy or guys who, help this at least be exciting if it's not a championship winner. What do you think?
I mean, it kind of seems like if you wanted him gone, which we both did, this is the best case scenario for his value, because if you're in some kind of sign and trade, we know the value's not there. Even if you were to extend and you trade him later or something, the value is not there on a multi-year deal, and to have him on this, what is a rental for 35 million, and then that team. Basically, they can take a risk on him. They'll retain his bird rights. They can re-sign him if they decide they want to do so later, but they're not obligated to. Is the point where his value will be the best. And so I'm not positive we're going to get anything amazing for him, but if we were going to, this is our best chance.
He's old. He's never in particularly good shape, and he's obviously declining, even though he's still good. So this splits the difference in a nice way where it's you can get him in, see him for a year. Team's trying to win a title. We'll, take a look at him. We'll talk about the teams. But the limiting thing is that we know that he's gone. Obviously I wanted him gone, but there's no real threat of no, they'll just carry him into the season. Harden opted in and now decides of working toward a trade. That's it. It's over. He's not going to play 50 games with the Sixers and then get traded. And also, can you imagine how actively bad he would be on purpose if he was playing for the Sixers?
He would weigh so much.
Truly, it would be remarkable. What happens now? I mean, obviously, Maxey is here, and I think that sort of no matter what, in most cases, he's going to get a huge chance to be a legit star.
It does get interesting, though, if they give him that chance and they're not convinced they want to re-sign him. He is restricted. They could match and trade him later. But at that point, you risk that might not be a great contract. If they don't want to throw a lot of money at Maxey, if he hasn't proved himself by mid-year, I wonder if he becomes a guy who could be traded.
I think they're going to extend him as soon as they can, which is this weekend. I don't think he's starting the season without a new contract.
Yeah, no, you could definitely be right. You could definitely.
And I get what you're saying, where it's you look at Tyler Hero, who is now seen to be probably on a not good contract. Guys in his similar bracket. I just think, especially with this Harden thing, that they'll want to reward a guy like Maxey and lock him up because they believe in him and in his growth curve and all of that. Right away, we hear about the Clippers, that the Clippers are big into this. They're trying to get him. Last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever, the week of the draft, it was Mark Stein and a couple of people had that Paul George is surprisingly somewhat available. Now, it sounds like the Clippers are not trying to do a Paul George for Harden thing, which I understand that they want to make it a big three. Obviously, that would be an excellent outcome to just go, it's so clean if you went Maxey, Paul George, and Embiid. Positionally, the defense you bring, it would be a wonderful thing. But first of all, do you think that's in the realm of possibility whatsoever? And if not, are you interested in the Clippers thing at all?
The overarching thing here is, does it matter, right? Is Harden just going to end up where he wants to go regardless? That's possible. Is the Paul George thing, how likely is that? I mean, I'd like to think it's possible, but the problem is the Sixers don't really have picks to throw at this to And it, it would have to be either like Harden and Melton, or Harden and Tucker, or else you're doing Harden and Tobias for Paul George and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't. The only reason I can see the Clippers doing that is they're like, Kawhi and Paul George are both hurt too much. Harden was pretty healthy this year, and they don't think that they're a good fit together. That they're kind of similar positionally, and that they want to bring a guard in. And then that they think that the Sixers can convince them they're gonna trade Harden somewhere else if they don't. This tweet that had this Woj clip, I thought was very funny. The Clippers are not interested in trading any of their good young players for Harden. They don't really have any good young players, so that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure who they consider good and young on that team. Maybe Bones Highland, who's not that good, or Terrence Mann, who's not that young. So it's hard.
I
to
like
say.
Terrence Mann though. I would love.
I do too, but he's
Terrence Mann.
27. Without Paul George, there's not really a Clippers package I find very compelling. Like, are we really going to bring in like Marcus Morris? Like, he's very old.
Yeah, no, I mean also like Tobias thing, like did they figure that out because he plays power forward? And also like I just don't think he's like a starter now. It's like, he's on his way out.
We all love Covington. I know we do, but he's not good anymore.
Yeah, I mean I certainly want Covington back in any scenario just to root for him again, but I agree that he's certainly not who we remember. We're at the stage where all the interested Harden teams are saying we're not giving up anything, and everybody's sort of saying like, well, we want a good return, and they're like, well, we'll give you a bad one. Like, I just think the reporting right now is kind of what it usually is when something like this happens, where teams say you can't have this and you can't have that and you can't have that, and then you end up getting a few of the things they said you can't have. The Knicks were also in the mix. I don't know if there's much there that we're interested in. You're not getting Brunson, but Quickly is very good on both ends. I'm not sure who else we like there. Then there's the idea to get like a role player or two and a pick or two, where you say the Sixers have essentially no picks. And now we might actually get in a conversation for the next guy,
And all of a sudden you have, and it's not that they have no picks, right? It's that they have no tradable picks.
Right.
They have picks every other year.
Right.
They can't do anything with them. And so any picks you add, you'd be able to trade. Or keep and then make other picks tradable. It's same idea.
I felt kind of dead when it was like, we're just running this back. And it's like, but we know this. Like, we know what's going to happen. I would be so unenthused. And now I'm excited because we get a kind of a new team. Like, I really think that Tobias is going to be gone, especially now, kind of. Like, given that they're looking at like a facelift on the team. And you just reorient the team around Embiid and Maxey. And, like we've said, the thing that will matter most in terms of them actually winning a title or winning the East is Embiid becoming the guy, like actually the guy. So that's more material than anything.
Is he comparing Reeves' NBA stats to McClung's G League stats?
No, it's better. Those are McClung's NBA stats. He's played 4 games in the NBA in the last 2 years. First off, I just want to point out here, Austin Reeves, if you clump the 2 seasons together, yes, his stats don't look good. If you take away the time that Russell Westbrook was the point guard instead of Reeves when he was the backup point guard, when he made his leap in the second season and then it carried over into the playoffs, he's like way better statistically than these numbers indicate. And then he's comparing him to a player who has played 4 games in the NBA, and 2 of them were with the Sixers when they were resting all of their starters at the end of the season.
And just remind me, how many slam dunk championships does Austin Reeves have? Oh,
exactly.
None? Sorry.
Sarah.
So you're telling me
a
trade? You're telling me a trade between these two is even? Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Austin Reeves is a Sixer.
Just ignore that Reeves is a great defender and Mac McClung is my size. Just ignore that.
You're a great defender.
I am. We think that, and I've tweeted about this a lot, that a lot of the things on the second apron have been a little bit exaggerated in terms of what needs to be the impact. But
I think it's honestly, I don't think that the implications are being overblown at all. I actually think, I think the teams are going to screw themselves for a decade with this new, the way that the Suns are treating it right now. It's not to say that it's a bad thing or not. Like, I think that the Suns making aggressive moves is if anything, it's, you can praise it for being bold enough to be the one team that's going into it. But like, first off, I just want to say, the players got screwed in these negotiations. Like, the players union should have never agreed to half of this stuff. I think if anything, it's probably going to lead to a lockout in a few years, and we'll probably have a few months where there's no basketball being played, and maybe 3 or 4 years when they're starting to, talk about renewing this CBA, because some of the things that have been explained to me in the negotiations are insane. Like the pick freezing. And like dropping your pick to the end of the first round if you go into the tax multiple years. Like they're basically trying to screw over the teams that are bold enough to make these spending claims. The cheap owners got their
silly,
way.
Right?
It's ridiculous.
It's dumb, but I mean, the teams like the Suns, right? Like, I think it's always going to come down to like the Warriors are the exception because of like the Warriors spent a lot of it because Curry was on a good deal. Then the new TV deal hit. Then they signed Durant. Then they gave Curry the massive contract. But besides that, most of the teams, unless you're insanely lucky like the Warriors, are hitting this when like their star, like Durant, is like 35. And like, you better win the next 2 years and you have an actual chance, and they're not even caring about 7 years from now.
It's going to be a real test.
Not to say it's not going to kill them in 7 years, because it is. I just don't think it's enough especially for owners that like really care about winning. I just don't think it's going to disincentivize teams from going all in when they already would have gone all in anyway. That's all I'm saying.
I don't disagree with that point. I think it's going to be the ultimate test of, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl and everyone was like, oh my God, I don't care if they ever win again. They won a Super Bowl in my lifetime. And then we were bad for 2 seasons and everyone was like, we'll fire Howie Roseman, get rid of the coach, get rid of the quarterback. Like, it's very easy to say that when you're in the position of winning. And then this is the ultimate test of that, because this is really going to the Phoenix Suns will almost guaranteed to be, they're putting themselves in a position where if they don't win a title in this window, they're bad for a decade with none of the rewards. So it's all like this risk factor that you play in. But once again, there might be renegotiations in a few years, and they might get rid of some of these insane things that just make team building so hard. And honestly, they're disincentivizing teams from spending even more than they already were. And I think that's a bad thing when you're talking about labor negotiations. The players should be getting paid, especially the middle class players are going to get screwed over here with they're all going to be fighting over the same 20 MLEs that are out there. And then it's going to push down guys who should be getting paid more money, because teams are only going to want to pay rookie contracts and stars. And then it's just gonna make it so that it even widens the gap between the people who make the most money and the people that are in the middle class.
It seems to me like the easiest way to get rid of, if they're worried about having all these super teams and stuff, like if it's really for competitiveness, which is probably not, it's probably more for having owners not spend as much money.
It is.
But if it's really about competitiveness, the simple solution to me seems like, and for a while has seemed like, get rid of the max contract. Like, why you have to go pay someone who's like a borderline, like Maxey's going to get a max, so it'll be a smaller max contract than the other guys, but he's going to get a max contract or around there. And then you have Nikola Jokic on a max contract. You have, Karl Towns is going to make $65 million in a couple of years. And you have guys who are so much better than him that are going to make the same. And that's the whole difference between these teams. But there's nothing you can do. You can't not sign Karl Towns if you're the Wolves. And you don't have a path to get a better player, because teams can sign multiple players that are great because they all fit.
Well, if you listen to the Ball podcast, you would have traded Karl Anthony Towns last year before you realized that you were going to pay the 30th best player in the league $65 million in 4 years. Once again,
it's an unbelievable contract.
And don't get me wrong, Towns and Beal are really good players, but we complain about the Tobias Harris contract for obvious reasons. He's never made an all-star team and he makes $40 million, but owners and teams and how they're run are going to use any excuse not to pay other guys on the team if they're paying one player $60 million in a season. And by the time that comes around, the hope is that the salary cap continues to expand and expand. But like people just say, oh, the new TV deal. And I'm like, that's not a guarantee. Like last time was an outlier in terms of like the explosion of the market. And like, if anything, I don't know if you guys follow the news, but like less and less people have television, cable providers and like whatever, like that is all connected to the money. So like, I just don't think that you should, like, once again, the players should be the ones that are controlling everything, in my opinion. I think that the players should just be the ones that kind of have more say over everything. I think that they should control more, not to go all Karl Marx on here, but like they should just control they're the ones who generate the revenue for the league. They should have majority say over where the money goes and where it's spent and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, we've ended in a situation where like you said, like the 30th best player in the league is getting paid as much as the 2 best players in the league. And that screws over a team like Minnesota, who is now going to have a really hard time moving that contract. And Bradley Beal was a little bit of a different situation because Bradley Beal had a no trade clause. But Bradley Beal would have never gotten the return that he's worth because of the amount of money he makes, and like that screws over your team too. So like it's just really hard to balance if you're like a small market team and you want to do the right thing and pay the guy that has been loyal to you.
I think that was enough about the cap. I am fully tapped out. Let's talk about some news in the Sixers world. Let me share the screen. Keith reported that there are, in fact, NBA basketball teams that are interested in Tobias Harris. That is the Cavs, Pacers, Pistons, Suns, Jazz, and Mavericks. So
look at how long that list is. Unbelievable. They are clamoring for Tobias.
That's a fifth of the NBA that is interested in the NBA.
He is a decent player, and the expiring has certainly has value now more than ever, kind of. But listen, everybody's been saying Keith and Terrell Harris, Tobias's dad, have seemingly been in cahoots for a while with some of the Tobias stuff that Keith has written. And listen, we love Keith. This is a pro Keith show. But I just don't think, I think if all of these teams were legitimately interested with a commensurate return, he wouldn't be on the Sixers anymore. So it seems like maybe people are offering pennies on the dollar for Tobias, or pennies on a quarter, whatever you want to call him. I just don't totally see it happening yet.
But I could just see it being another one of those things where Darryl just holds him and holds him and holds him until the last minute he can trade him before his contract runs out. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Tobias is playing 50 games for the Sixers this season, as much as I would hate it.
The majority of these teams don't have players that they would be willing to part with that would appeal to the Sixers. Like the only 2 kind of trade packages I could see from these teams specifically, like you can run through each team and say, okay, the Cavs aren't giving up Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell or Evan Mobley, despite, you know, Daryl Morey's wants in that trade. And then you have teams like the Pacers, Pistons, Jazz, whatever, that probably are not going to be giving up their top prospects or players. If we are to make a trade in this offseason, my favorite one involving these teams is where the Pacers strike out on Harrison Barnes. They just drafted Ben Shepherd at the end of the first round, and if you watch Ben Shepherd's tape, he's exactly like Buddy Hield. Like he's a relocation shooter. You know, Buddy's one of the 10 to 15 greatest shooters in NBA history, so it's hard to replace his production, but they have a ton of 2-3s on their roster right now, and Buddy coming back to the Sixers would be an ideal return, not just because he is a good player who can impact the offense, even though the defensive fit is a little bit shaky with Harden and Maxey in the backcourt, but more so because you would shed a lot of money in that trade and you would get a direct route to the mid-level exception. So you're not only trading for Buddy Hield in that trade, you're also trading for the opportunity to make an offer for Grant Williams or one of these guys that's probably going to get the MLE, Bruce Brown, someone like that can also come in and make an impact. So if there is a trade to be made during the season, you could do something like that. Or with Detroit, it would probably be for Bojan Bogdanovic, which once again, good player. I have similar concerns about the defense, but you're shedding money because both of those teams have cap space, and you can just send Tobias into the remaining cap space in that trade. So those are probably the 2 that are the most realistic to me happening this offseason. Personally, if I'm making a trade, I want to get Buddy Hield because Buddy Hield's on an expiring contract. And I actually think that, like Steve said, I think expiring contracts are going to be incredibly valuable. If you run it back with Harden, you're probably in the same position that you were in before. I mean, we've seen the James Harden experience. I don't think it's going to get any better here in Philadelphia, but I also know that ultimately this comes down to Joel Embiid being good enough to be the best player on an Eastern Conference Finals team. And like, you know, Harden's going to have bad games, Tobias is going to have bad games, Melton's going to have bad games, Maxey's going to have bad games. When your best player is not showing up in the biggest games and the biggest moments, that's really where the fundamental issue comes in to play here. And the reason why Harden isn't the greatest partner for Embiid is because he's incredibly inconsistent himself with his effort and his production.
Even if Embiid plays better, I'm not sure it's enough. If Harden opts in, like, I don't think he will, but like, to me, like a Harden opt-in with looking to trade him for some of the names you see come up, like Paul George's name has come up. Would it make sense for them to take a shot on Harden? You know, to get a guard next to Kawhi Leonard. Like, Paul George is a lot better than Harden at this point, I think, and that would be interesting to me, especially if you're someone who really believes in Maxey.
If the Sixers aren't going to win a title, I'd rather just keep Maxey because, like, the Sixers don't bring me any joy, and he does. And like, if you were able to trade Harden for Paul George, you do it in a second. But we also see with these opt-in deals, the returns are never as good as the players that you're sending out. Like, the opt-in and trade deals are like the Chris Paul trade that happened when he got sent to the Rockets, which they got back Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, a first-round pick, and like nothing really. And then like Kristaps Porzingis just opted in and got traded, and they got Tyus Jones back. Because you don't really have any leverage in those trade talks, because it kind of just comes down to like where the player wants to go, what teams are willing to offer for a player that's only on a 1-year deal. That, you know, the Chris Paul deal, they opted in and they extended him, so they were able to get a little bit more value out of that as the Clippers. But like, the majority of these opt-in and trade deals are very similar to the sign-in trade deals, where like you're not getting a player that's just as good back for that player. I love Paul. I mean, I argued Paul George should have been in the NBA 75 over Damian Lillard. So like, you're not even like, I'm not even like throwing shade at Paul George. Just that, like, you know, everyone has their flaws, and there's a reason why these guys are available for trade. And like, you're never going to get the perfect trade. And that's what I was like, I don't think you should, with Tobias and Maxey and all them, like, I don't think you should wait out for like the perfect trade, but there could be an opportunity with this new CBA where teams are kind of panicking and willing to overpay for guys a few months from now.
Casual Sixers fans, they'll trade me, Tobias Harris, for a crumble cookie. At the end of the day, they have to realize you're not getting a 6'9" forward who can shoot damn near 40% from 3. Guard the other team's best player, shoot, post up, drive, and all the stuff Tobias Harris isn't known to do.
Yeah. We traded him for OG Anunoby.
You know, everybody I know is like, you know, most people, like, people are hard on themselves for the most part, you know what I mean? And Tobias Harris goes easier on himself than anybody. I mean, he scored, what, like 2 points in Game 6 against the Celtics in what should have been the closeout game. And all he wants to do, and this has been for years, and I'm not saying he should apologize for the contract he signed or anything like that, but when he plays like shit, all he will do is like kind of list to you his skills instead of like saying like, oh, I'm going to go work on this, I'm going to get better at this, I should have done better at this. He's like, oh, look at all the things I can do though. And then you hear all this from his dad agent about how he's, you know, not being used right. And it's like, well, how should he be used? Because he's been used in like a bunch of different ways. And the Sixers seem to be better the less offensive minded he is.
Yeah, Tobias turns into a ball don't stop monologue whenever he gets criticized, you know?
Yeah.
Your 1 dribble pull up, your 2 dribble pull up, back to the basket game.
I'm not saying you have to say, oh, I suck, but like, come on.
He missed like 3 layups in the open court, dude. Like, and 2 that were
he's
like
the worst layup maker in the league, I think.
Well, DeAnthony Melton, but he's close second. I would say
we have both.
We have both of them in full court specifically. In the half court, Tobias might be worse. Like, I really don't think that I've ever seen a 6'9" guy who has less or 6. First off, he's 6'8". I think he rounded up to 6'9". Mm-hmm. He shoots 38% from 3, rounded up to 40%. He usually guards the second best teams because PJ usually.
And he, like, I'm done hearing about him being a good guy and his leadership. They quit every single year. Like, what is it doing for you? Like, They quit
Are you
every
even
year.
sure he's that good of a guy? I feel like he's gonna try to like
I like
when he
this ring.
retires, he's gonna like have like an account telling people how to invest in real estate. Like he's
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a grind set guy. He put the crumble
Yeah.
cookie in there because he invested in crumble cookie.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so annoying. And
done.
Drew, pull up a tweet from the fucking guy who paid for Twitter, and now ever since Elon took over, he's on everyone's Explore page all the time, listing random Embiid stats.
Oh, the fake guy.
Aiden?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I see his
He-
tweet is up there in one of the tabs.
He
Yeah,
did not
yeah.
exist until 2 months ago. I swear to
No,
God.
he
like,
did
I
not
think
exist.
we actually we have an ongoing joke in our group DMs that he's actually an op set up by Celtics fans, like a CIA op,
yes.
but he's just been programmed by Celtics fans to just churn out stuff like this.
Like, what is
He-
this account? It is confounding.
The Harris tweet is like this guy who I've never heard of, who posts the most bizarre stuff. We are not even sure he's a Sixers fan. Is speaking for Sixers fans. Like, bro, shut up.
Just making it clear. It's like, we don't need you to release a statement. Shut the fuck up for 5 minutes. Fans don't want Tobias off the team. We want
I
his
do.
awful contract off the team. Not a single fan blames him for securing that bag either. It's just $39 million going to Tobias, keeps them in jail. Elton Brand put the Sixers in a terrible position. Like, it's.
I mean,
It's been 5 years of this. I want him off the team. It's not just
Lots
his
of people have
contract.
wanted him off the team.
I also want him off
Yes,
the team.
Right.
oh, did we just get a notification
Yeah,
from
we just
Woj
got
that
a
deleted?
notification.
This 3 years, $60 million to stay.
Oh God, Vooch.
He's not
360
even
for
good.
Vooch.
Wait, this is Shams. He's out of jail?
Yeah, he's been
Oh,
free.
wow.
He tweeted yesterday something, and he was he's been
out.
free.
Wait, what is this?
from
I didn't know Shams was in jail.
Oh, he got the joke on Twitter all week has been that Shams was put in prison for the things that he
Betting
tweeted.
line stuff.
Yeah, to manipulate the market
Oh yeah.
for FanDuel.
Also, like, I get why that annoys people, but also, like, these books are so, like, pulling this shit as is. Like, I feel like this is, like, NBA Twitter learning about how shitty sports books are.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah, no,
Like,
the sports books.
This just, like, scratches the surface.
Yeah. First off, all of these things and one of the things that someone brought up to me when Shams was first hired, they were like, sports books know way more than Shams and Woj even
Yes.
know. Like, sports books are plugged in directly to the team in the league, which in itself is like a moral, like, how is this
Yeah.
even legal?
The reason when
Well-
people say, like, you know, Vegas is king and you know, the casino is gonna win, like, it's not because they guess right consistently. Like, they're very plugged in.
Yes.
They don't need Shams.
Yeah. But yeah, Vooch back to the Bulls, man. They are just committed to staying mid forever.
Like,
I think they might trade DeMar. They want a haul for Levine, and I just don't think they're going to get it on that contract. He's probably going to end up being back on the Bulls next year. I mean, I think that they're committed to being the mid three. We used to use that.
by Daryl.
Well, we used to use that gif all the time whenever people would talk about Ben learning how to shoot. Every off season. Let's go. Yeah,
Keith's broken stories before, though. It's not like he's not plugged in at all.
Well, Keith's plugged into the agent side, and agents are giving him information that are good for their, like, for example, when we signed PJ Tucker last year and he leaked, remember, a few months in advance, it was like a month in advance, he leaked that story about PJ Tucker basically, and he talked about PJ Tucker's growing business opportunities in the Delaware Valley. And then I was like, what team is leaking this to a journalist? Like, no team would give a fuck about his business opportunities in the Delaware Valley.
I
So
think Daryl's pissed about the 2 second-round picks we lost, and that's why he's pissed at Keith.
it's definitely possible. And then they weren't able to buy back into the second round this year, which is what they were trying to do. So I'm sure he's not very happy with him over that. But, you know, game's the game. He's got to do what he's got to do. It's his job.
Keith also broke the Ben trade request.
From
Just dropped.
Kelly Lako?
Yeah, and Kelly actually also just said the Rockets are no longer an option for James Harden.
Right. And that's a legit reporter.
Yeah.
He's a Houston guy, right?
Yeah, he's the Athletic Houston reporter. He goes on a lot of athletic podcasts. He's plugged into the organization.
Listen, I love any team being interested in Harden.
Except the Sixers.
Whatever, you're correct, all but one. So I don't really buy this as like turning the tide, at the 11th hour. I think that he's going to be back on the team. But like there are all these Paul George whispers. I know, Cho, you're saying that would value-wise be a difficult thing because
I would love to be wrong here. Paul George has been one of my favorite players. So
I would love that swap. I mean, listen, I'm probably gonna lose in the second round, but let me lose different. I don't care. Let me just watch something.
At least have an athletic big wing who can shoot. Like that's fun.
I don't want to watch James Harden lay at center court for 4 quarters. Like,
I'm so sick of the ball stopping, and I sound like my dad when I wanted Harden in the first place back when Ben was not showing up, and actually the year before Ben was not showing up.
Exactly. We still won that trade, dude. That's
for sure.
But I wanted Harden for a long time. I wanted him when he was requesting a trade from the Rockets. And I don't think at that time he wasn't so much the player everyone thought he was. I mean, he dribbled a lot, but he was such a great scorer. And he's not anymore. Now he's a not great scorer who's dribbling a lot.
We're just laughing at Damian Lillard.
That's his dream, guys. That's not his like lowest tolerable situation where he doesn't request a trade. That's his dream. He's waking up at night thinking about this with like excitement, like it's Christmas morning. That's his dream. That team would suck.
Damian Lillard's a fantastic player. One of the 100 best players of all time. I don't know about top 75. He's certainly one of the best, most talented pull-up three-point shooters, great ball handler. Would love to have him as a Sixer, undeniably. Would absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But there's part of him that has like this like weird inferiority complex to Steph Curry where like he thinks that the reason why Steph is Steph is because he has Draymond and not because Steph is just better than him. And like this kind of drives that point further. Like, first off, Draymond's not even as good as he was 4 years ago when the Warriors were at their peak. Like, Draymond's still an amazing defensive player, but I don't think that this team would do. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really think that they're making noise in the Western Conference. I mean, if you're Dame and you want to stay there, I think the right move is trying to trade Simons for an immediate better fit, because they don't think he can play with Sharp and Scoot anyway. So like trade Simons for an immediate better fit, make the team competitive, and then still have this upside. If Scoot comes in and he's Ja Morant in year 2, then you have an awesome team that can at least, win a playoff series in the next few years.
I would love to see Tobias there. I feel like
let's go.
Yeah, that would really get the wheels turning.
All right, Tobias for Anthony Simons.
That's what I'm saying.
We take on the Nurk contract, so we have a backup center for Joel and Nurk, and then we start 3 guards: Harden at the 3, Simons and Maxey bombing threes. Let's go.
100%. Do we know who this is from? Who's draft night? Real quick, who that's from?
All I know is that Mike Levin was sent this,
right?
And I believe he sent it to Kyle Neubeck, and then Kyle confirmed with the team, and they said, "Yeah, that's real." So someone definitely posted this on like a private Instagram story or something that they don't have a lot of followers, and then Mike was sent it from someone.
I have a theory that this is like a Danny Ainge vibe, like like we were really close to trading for second round picks.
It's definitely. Just to give the fans some slop, just to be like, we tried real hard.
Yeah, we really wanted to buy 58, but like they just wouldn't sell.
Also, like, what player are you getting at 58 that you cannot get as an undrafted? The 58 is the last pick in the draft. There were two.
Right, there were only 28 first round picks this year, or 28 second round picks. Yeah,
we got one taken away. So
yeah,
depth chart on here, which includes like Harden in red ink, Paul Reed in red ink, and sort of a line of demarcation. McDaniels is down there. I don't remember where Niang ended up.
My buddy Daniel did a whole thing where he literally broke it down. One of the things that Nurse probably liked about the roster was the fact that they had these guys like Melton, Reed, and McDaniels, who, if you remember, the Toronto game at the end of the year, the beginning of that game, we ran that lineup with Melton, Reed, McDaniels, and it was a nightmare for the Raptors. They could not do anything. We turned the ball over like 5 times.
Arms everywhere.
arms everywhere, running out full court, and then Doc just never played that lineup again.
Yeah.
Like, that was the one thing that was the most. And once again, I don't think it was really Doc's fault we lost. I thought Doc did a pretty good job this year. I thought he had to be the fall guy because that's just kind of how things work in the NBA. But like, the one thing that frustrated me the most about Doc's coaching is when lineups worked, he would just go away from them. And I'm hoping that nurses like trust these guys a little bit more and makes it so that like they fit the style of play that he wants, which is he always talks about, and he talks about how the most important thing on defense is putting pressure on the ball and generating turnovers. And if that's the case, I think he's going to want players like this, especially when you have Joel Embiid on the back line instead of, for a while, no rim protector in Toronto until they
you can recover from a risk. Yeah,
exactly.
Free agency starts essentially on Friday, 6 p.m. Give me, both of you, all three of you, one player who's not on the Sixers now who will be on the Sixers in a week, starting with Porter.
Okay, so
Yeah,
okay,
it doesn't, not on the Sixers doesn't count like
Also,
free
take
agent
your
that they
time
just-
because Drew's going to edit this to make it look like you answered right away.
Okay, cool. So we're talking about current free agents that will be on the Sixers in a week.
or a trade. So any player in the league who is not on the Sixers who will be.
You guys got to answer first because I have not thought about this at all. Hold on. Because I'm looking around and I'm like, this free agency class kind of sucks.
Mhm.
So like the guys that we're going to end up getting are probably, I would say, underwhelming for what the anticipation is. It's kind of going to be like that offseason 2 years ago when we got Niang and Drummond and we were like, that's it? Like, that's just kind of like boring. But like, and I know people are going to rip their hair out, but like, you know what? I'll go with a bold one here. I'm going to say Derek Jones Jr. He opted out of his contract with the Bulls. I think he's probably going to be looking to get the mid-level. He's from Philly kid, which everyone loves more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a thing where I say the most important thing, number one, is you are from here. Number two, you can shoot, and number three, you're actually good at basketball. So like if you and like Derek Jones,
1 for 3 isn't bad. Yeah.
Well, he I would say he's 2 for 3 because they used him as a small. They used him
Another
as a
slam dunk champion too.
Slam dunk champion, really athletic. If we lose McDaniels because he gets like a crazy bag from another team, Derek Jones Jr. wouldn't be a bad replacement for kind of what he could bring. He's smaller, but he's really athletic. They used him like a small ball 5 the last few years in Chicago, and if you want fucking some Daryl Morey calculator rat stuff, his analytics just shot up like crazy when they moved him over to the small ball center lineups. So that's at least an option. I think it's someone that could be out there. And then if a bolder move that I don't think would happen until later would be another Philadelphian and Kyle Lowry if he ends up getting either bought out after he's traded or waived and stretched by the Heat.
I'll give you a weird one here. How about Russell Westbrook on the minimum? Darryl and Harden both like him.
I mean, I might get killed for saying this. I wouldn't hate it if I knew that you could bench him in the playoffs.
Give me a little chaos. I love it.
I mean, I'm not rooting for that. I don't really want that, but I could see it.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he doesn't end up back on the Clippers just because they didn't get Chris Paul. But if they had got Chris Paul, I think that would have been a much more likely scenario. But like, I don't know. I think there are worse backup point guards in the NBA than Russell Westbrook, even if he can drive you insane, like the Sixers stars tend to as well.
He insists on shooting 17-foot bank shots.
Exactly.
All right, I decided that. Where'd he go? Lonnie Walker. I don't know.
Ooh, I like that one.
I don't know.
Another Philly guy.
Reading, close enough.
Reading.
Oh wait,
Close
he is
enough.
Reading.
Taylor
right.
Swift says she's from
Yeah,
Philly, and she
it counts.
She grew up in the same area as him.
It counts.
Yeah, so I mean, you're hearing everything out of LA is Reeves and Hachimura. I honestly completely forgot Lonnie Walker was a free agent.
Love it.
Yeah, I would like that too.
Anything, it could be as simple as like whatever exception we have, and just hope he takes it. I think his versatility would help pair his size with Maxey and Harden, and also just kind of help glue together Tobias's weaknesses if he comes back, because he's a little bit smaller and faster. So
Yep. Good shooter
That's a great
too.
one, Drew.
I'll say Zach LaVine. I think that if Chicago tries to split the difference and just get off the money, don't like the medicals, whatever, get Tobias there. Seems like a bull, certainly a recent era bull, and the Sixers just go all scoring, no defense, just vibes.
Let's go.
That's what I got.
And Levine's defense has actually been improved recently too.
Yes.
His on-ball defense was good this year. So
Yeah.
I think that DeRozan, Tobias, and Vucevic would be just elite. That would be so good.
That's a
that would be the
two-seed.
greatest 10
That's
seed
a
of all
2
time.
seed.
the sub all stars. That's honestly
man, that
offensive
would be
to
so
DeMar, probably.
He will trade you.
Absolutely.
That's ridiculous.
Excuse me?
What?
This
Who's
guy.
talking?
Smart mouth over
Smart mouth. What's your name?
here. DeMar.
Okay.
DeMar, I say it, the less I like it.
Is this guy even a basketball player?